So I'm just going to be going through briefly some support for the exam questions on the cognitive approach. So if you turn to page 22 in your booklet, you can answer this one in your booklet as well. So read the question carefully. Which of the following is not a feature of the cognitive approach in psychology? And in the real exam, you just shade the circle, so not a feature. So does it not use computer models? Does it not use direct observation? Does it not use inference? Or does it not use theoretical models? So have a go at that. Next question, briefly outline one limitation of the cognitive approach. Just a sentence, okay. One limitation is, this means that, that's all you need. Okay, use your booklet to help you with that one. Okay, again on page 22, which of the following statements about the cognitive approach is false, i.e. incorrect? So is it false that inferences about internal mental processes are made on the basis of behaviour? Is it false that internal mental processes are studied scientifically? Is it false mental processes are studied directly by making inferences? Or is it false theoretical and computer models are used to help explain mental processes? So it's quite a tricky question, this one. Take your time with it. Okay, so on page 23, I'll just turn to that now. So we use schema when we process information from the world around us. So I've highlighted some of the key points here for this 4-mark question. So explain one reason why using schema might be useful when processing information from the world around us. So you get 2 marks for that. And then explain one reason why using schema might not be useful when processing information from the world around us. So you need to look at schema in your booklet for this. So I want you to set it out for this. So one reason using schema is useful when processing information around us is because, say what schema is, why we use it. For example, there's lots of examples in your booklet, lots of examples we talked about in the last lesson. Leave a line and then say one reason using schema when processing information around us might not be useful is because. So it's the negatives of using schemas such as bias, cognitive biases, etc. And then give an example of that as well. And there is an example in the booklet, just use those, you don't have to think of your own for these questions. Okay, again another multiple choice on page 23 there. So which of the following best describes the aim of cognitive neuroscience? So the aim, is it to relate to mental processes to brain structures? Think about what neuroscience is. To relate theoretical models to mental processes. To use biological terms to explain behaviour, to use computers to explain mental processes. So all of these terms do relate to cognition, but it's what best describes the aim of cognitive neuroscience. So have a look back in your booklet for that one. Have a go. Remember, 1-mark questions are just as important as a 16-mark question. Okay, it makes a difference. Okay, now this was quite a tricky question, this one. Again, these are like your A-star, grade A questions. We've got to apply. That's why we practice them so much straight away. So Adil has just started studying the cognitive approach in psychology, but does not understand when his teacher tells him that cognitive psychologists use the results of experiments to make inferences about behaviour. So write a brief explanation of inference that would help Adil to understand what the teacher means. So just explain, as if you're speaking to Adil there, what inferences are. Okay, use your booklet to help you with that one. Okay, now this next question on page 23, it's a mini essay. You can get 8-mark mini essays. So it's asking you outline 2 features of the cognitive approach, and only 2. You've not got time to do every single feature. And then 2 limitations, so 2 peel paragraphs there. You'd spend about 10 minutes on this, about 12.5 minutes if you get extra time. Pick any 2 areas you prefer. One is not better than the other. So, and I would set it out. So one feature is that we study sorry, not we, it studies internal mental processes. Explain what those are, brief paragraph, leave a line, or you don't have to leave a line, but just make it clear. New paragraph. A second feature is you might want to do the role of schema there, sorry. Again, new paragraph. One limitation is use your booklet, fully peel that. A new paragraph, a second limitation is. So you'll see that it looks like half an essay when you write it. Stick to that format, use your booklet, you won't go wrong. Remember, it is an outline though, don't just copy from your booklet. You've got to summarise 2 of the features. Okay, so get used to summarising information. Okay, then on page 23 and it goes over to page 24, we've got some more application. Don't do the question on standard deviation. If you do start, you might want to have a go at it. You're welcome to do that, but we've not covered that yet, so please don't worry. I just want you to answer the question. Outline one problem of studying internal mental processes like memory ability when conducting experiments such as that described in question 3 above. So it's just a limitation. Look at your limitations in your booklet for that and apply it to the scenario. I'm not giving you much more help than that. We should be getting used to doing this independently now. So set it out. One problem of studying internal mental processes is, and then a link to the scenario. Okay, now the next one is quite a tricky one on page 24, but I don't want you to overthink it. So read the item and answer the question that follows. Psychologists investigating theoretical models of cognitive processes study human cognitive processing. They sometimes give participants to solve, then ask them about their experience afterwards. Typical participant responses are as follows. Response A, there were too many things to think about at the same time. Response B, I had to do one task at a time, then do the next task, and so on. So you've got to briefly suggest how each of these responses might inform psychologists investigating models of human cognitive processing. Okay, so look back at your theoretical models, think about inferences, think about models that we've looked at already. Don't overthink this. Okay, so what would it tell us about human cognitive processing? Response A, too many things, so could it be to do with capacity? Response B, I had to do one task at a time, then do a next task, and so on. Think about duration. Hint, hint. Don't overthink this answer, okay? Okay, next one. This is why you've got to cover everything which is bullet pointed on the front of your booklet. They could ask you really specific questions about a specific area of cognitive psychology. So outline what is meant by cognitive neuroscience and describe one practical application. So just summarise, small paragraph, 3 marks for this. Just outline what cognitive neuroscience is. Use your booklets. You'd spend about 8 minutes on this in the exam, so it's probably about 2/3 of a page if you do smallish writing, and then say one practical application is. It's in your booklet on page 21. Just use that. So it can be used in therapy, for example, CBT. Use that as well. Okay. Again, briefly explain one strength and one limitation of the cognitive approach. Just one peel paragraph on a strength of the cognitive approach, use your booklet, and then one limitation peel paragraph, use your booklet for that. And then for this one, you've just got to say what inferences are, so state what they are, but link it to the scenario. So what can the cognitive psychologist infer, i.e. presume, about problem solving and the presentation of the problem solving in the different colours? Okay, you might feel, oh, I'm repeating what's in the scenario. You are a little bit, but you've got to explain what inference is. Any questions, please email me. Quite a lot of you are doing that. Please don't stop doing that because some of these are a bit tricky, but rather than just emailing me straight away, make sure you've watched the video, make sure you've watched that little section on what you might be struggling with, then have a look at your booklet. If you're still struggling, then email me. So I hope this was of some help to you.